Hey, Nodal Nighthawks, this is Module 5, Lesson 8. In this lesson, we're going to continue using that area model to help us create or show equivalent fractions. So our objective, if I could talk today, is I will be able to use the area model and multiplication to show the equivalence of two fractions. We briefly touched on this in Lesson 7, so we will work more with that today, using those area models to help us show our work. All right, so our first one, it's already done for us, so it's a good model. So the shaded fractions have been decomposed into smaller units. So notice if we were to ignore this horizontal line, okay, that's what they added to decompose even more, we can see that there's 1, 2 of the 3 shaded. So that's where the 2/3 comes in, okay? But then they decomposed it into smaller units and they made 1, 2 new rows. So you're multiplying by 2. So they took their numerator of 2, multiplied it by 2. They took their denominator of 3, multiplied it by 2. Remember, whatever you do to the bottom, you have to do to the top. I have to multiply my numerator and denominator by the same number if I'm making equivalent fractions, okay? So our 2/3, when we did that multiplication of 2 times 2, gave us 4. 3 times 2 gave us 6. And when we decompose that into those two rows, it equals, now we have 2, 4 of our 6 shaded, okay? And we're showing that with that multiplication sentence. All right, let's work through one together. All right, so whenever we want to figure out, well, what are we working with first, we ignore the horizontal lines. Okay, so imagine those aren't there. And I have 1, 2, 3 of the 4 shaded. So we started with 3/4. So we can show that in our fraction is equal to, and we need to show, well, what did they multiply by to create that new fraction? Okay, the equivalent fraction. And remember, with these Google Slides, if you're clicking and dragging and that takes way too much time, you can always work it on paper, okay? All right, so 3/4 is what we started with. And let's see, well, how many new rows did they make? They made 1, 2, 3. So if we multiply our numerator and denominator by 3, then we should get our new equivalent fraction. So let's see what we get when we multiply by 3. And you could look at this and say, well, okay, so we knew that we had 3/4 to begin with. What do we have when we when we use those horizontal lines? We've got 3, 6, 9 of the 12 shaded. So you could think, well, what's 4 times what gets me 12? 3 times what gets me 9? And then that will help you figure out what you need to multiply by as well. So because we multiplied by 3, 4 times 3, that gives us 12. 3 times 3 gives us 9. And that's true within our area model as well. So we had 1, 2, 3/4. Here's our 3/4. We decomposed that into 1, 2, 3 rows. So we multiplied by 3, and that gave us 9/12. 3, 6, 9 of the 12 are shaded. Okay? All right, let's do a couple more. Okay, so we ignore that horizontal line. Let's figure out what we started with. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 of the 5 shaded. So we've got 4/5. 4/5. And I'm going to do this one by looking and seeing what we now have and use that information to help us figure out what we need to divide by. Okay, so now let's figure out, well, what do we now have after we decomposed? Now we have 2, 4, 6, 8. And we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 total. So we decomposed and made an equivalent fraction of 8/10. So what do I need to multiply by for my 5 times what equals 10? That's what you can use too, but then if we look at that area model, how many rows did they make? 1, 2. 5 times 2 gets me 10. So that'll help you too, just those basic facts. I keep saying how our basic facts are not going to go anywhere. So 4 times 2 gives us that new numerator of 8. 5 times 2 gives us that new numerator of 10. So we could say 4/5 is equal to 8/10. They are equivalent fractions, 8/10. Okay, here we go for another one. So look at that. What can we, what's our starting fraction? So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for our numerator. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we are starting with 5, 6 is equal to, oops. Okay, and what do we have now? We've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. 10 is our numerator. And our denominator is 12 because we have 2 that are not shaded. So we decomposed, we multiplied by what to get that new equivalent fraction? We made 1, 2 rows. Would that be true? 6 times 2, is that 12? 5 times 2, is that 10? Yes. So 5, 6 is equivalent to 10/12 when we multiply them by 2. So remember, this is the only time your denominator should be changing is when you're making equivalent fractions, whether you're dividing or multiplying. I noticed in some of our ed puzzles when we were adding, if I had 1/8 plus 1/8, some of us were writing 2/16. When we're adding, our denominator stays the same, okay? When we're multiplying and making equivalent fractions, that's when we're going to see that denominator change. Okay, I know there's lots of different rules we have to follow with fractions, but you'll get it. All right. I'm going to skip down to, oh no, this will be a good one. So it says decompose into 15ths. So it doesn't have the horizontal lines drawn yet. So we need to figure out how many rows do we have to make this our new denominator 15ths. Okay, so let's see what we're starting with. So we've got 1, 2, 3 of the 4, 5 shaded. So we've got 3/5. 3/5. And it wants us to decompose that into 15ths. So my thought process would be 5 times what gives me 15? You can skip count by 5s if you want to. So we know that our new denominator, they're asking us to make it 15ths. Okay? So 5, 10, 15. We're going to multiply by 3, which means we need to make 3 rows. So we're going to put 2 lines to make 3 new rows. And then we can see what our new numerator is going to be. So we've got 3, 6, 9. Let's make sure we did 15. So there's 5, 10, 15. Yep, so 3, 6, 9, 15ths. Excuse me. So 3 times 3, because I made 1, to 3 rows. 3 times 3, does that give me 9? Yes, it does. 5 times 3, does that give me 15? Yes, it does. So we have to make sure that everything's matching up, that the math is correct. We can't guess on how many rows. We're using our basic fact knowledge to help us with that. Okay, 5 times 3 gives us 15. So 3/5 is equal to 9/15. 3/5 and 9/15 are equivalent fractions. Good. So we will do one more for this lesson. All right, so this one is giving us the equivalent fractions, and then it wants you to draw the area model to prove that this is true. Okay, so what are we starting with? We're starting with 2/5. So I need 2 of those 5 shaded. 2 is my numerator, so I'm gonna have 2 shaded, but I need 5 total, right? Because my denominator is 5. So there's 3, 4, and 5. So if I have 2/5, 5 times what makes a 10? 5 times, so 5, 10. So 5 times 2 gives me 10. So I need to make 2 rows, which would just be 1 line across. So if we take our line, decompose that, do I now have 4/10? Let's check. 2, 4, yep. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Yes, I have 4/10. So it wants, does it draw area model? So it doesn't want us to write the multiplication sentence on that one. So we just had to prove it with the area model. 5 times 2, 10. 2 times 2, 4. So yes, 2/5 is equivalent to 4/10. All right. All right, you guys, we'll keep working on this during class this week. As always, if you have questions, let me know. And office hours are there for me to help you guys, walk you through one-on-one on anything, okay? All right, nice work today. We'll see you guys soon. Have a good day.